43.1. The Duke was truly feeling some regret. He had paid too much attention to his own face, saying that he wouldn't back down, and that's why he had let Tham Lang go. But who would have thought that Tham Lang could resolve the situation with such finesse in just one night? He could only lift the ban on Tham Lang. The Duchess was comforting him, saying, "My husband, the young are bound to make mistakes. Besides, how could Điền Hoành really harm our longer? He wouldn't dare to strike him." The Duke responded, "Điền Hoành has Liu Wunan and Trong Tin behind him, a crafty old fox and a ruthless one. Tham Lang is just a brat who doesn't know the world. He thinks he's only facing a gang leader, but he's not just up against Điền Hoành, he's facing major forces." Of course, the Duke did not say the other half of the story, that Tham Lang falling into Điền Hoang's trap could drag the entire Duke's household down with him. But those were words he would never speak. Tham Lang was still a child, he couldn't carry such a heavy accusation. The Duchess replied, "Young people need to go through hardships to learn the dangers of the world. This way, my husband, you can teach him to be wiser in the future. Longer is a smart boy, but he needs to think things through. We can't push him too hard." The Duke snorted, "Let him suffer this time. He'll learn to be more careful." The Duchess continued, "He's still young. I hope Điền Hoang will show some restraint. Some things don't need to be pushed too far. He shouldn't think that just because he's allied with the Tai Hufu, he can do whatever he wants." The Duke was thinking that in the end, Tham Lang was just a small fry trying to fight Điền Hoang, the mighty local bully backed by major forces. The only thing he worried about was Tham Lang falling into someone else's trap and causing a huge disaster. However, at that moment, a figure rushed in and kneeled, saying, "Greetings, master, madam." This was Jin Hoi, a top fighter from the Duke's household. Today, the Duke had specially sent him to secretly protect Tham Lang along with a dozen others, with Jin Hoi as the leader. The Duke asked, "So, how did it go? Did Tham Lang get into trouble? Did Điền Hoang not dare to harm him?" Jin Hoi's expression was somewhat strange, and he replied, "Master, madam, the son-in-law, he won a complete victory. He almost forced Điền Hoang to bankruptcy. He made him break Điền San's legs and Điền Shi's arms and legs, and even made Điền Hoang vomit blood in front of everyone." Upon hearing this, everyone froze. The Duke and Duchess exchanged looks before the Duke spoke. "What? How is that possible?" Indeed, how could it be? Tham Lang was just a small fry. How could he face the mighty Điền Hoang and his powerful backers? Huyen Vào City was their territory now. The Duke asked, "What about Trong Tin and Liu Wunan? Didn't they stop Điền Hoang?" Jin Hoi responded, "Trong Tin and Liu Wunan are malicious. They wanted to harm the son-in-law and create a large-scale stampeding event, causing the deaths of dozens of innocent people, and put all the blame on our Duke's household." The Duke and Duchess immediately stood up in shock. Those two went so far? The Duke had always been cautious, never meddling too deeply in political affairs. "What happened next?" the Duke asked coldly. He couldn't believe that Tham Lang, a mere son-in-law, could have dealt with such a dangerous situation alone. Jin Hoi continued, "We had prepared to intervene and save the son-in-law, but we didn't expect him to turn the tables. Not only did he resolve the crisis, but he also made Liu Wunan smile begrudgingly in front of everyone, swallowing his pride." The Duke could hardly believe it and asked, "How did this happen? Explain everything in detail." Jin Hoi then told the story of how Tham Lang had displayed incredible power in the gambling hall. "What?" The Duke was furious. He went to the gambling hall and won a lot of money? Did he bring the money back? If he took the money, the reputation of the Duke's household would be ruined overnight." Jin Hoi shook his head and said, "No, he didn't take a single coin. He spent all the money he won on the people of Huyen Vào City. He didn't act for money, but for justice for the people of the city. He said he wanted to punish Điền Hoang's gambling house for ruining so many lives. He even had Điền Hoang write an IOU for 17,000 gold coins, which he handed over to the city lord to handle. The money is all to help the poor. The crowd cheered, calling him a hero, and shouted for the Duke to live long. The Duke was stunned. Tham Lang had used this opportunity to raise the Duke's reputation. Meanwhile, the Duchess smiled in admiration. She could already imagine how charming Tham Lang must have looked, full of charisma. "Good son-in-law, good boy," she praised. Jin Hoi went on to describe how Tham Lang had resolved the situation and even forced Dian Huang to take responsibility for the IOU, further humiliating him. The Duke couldn't help but laugh. This little brat is indeed very crafty. The Duchess said, "He's truly a good person. He's so respectful and dutiful to his parents." Who would have thought that Tham Lang, a mere son-in-law, would go to Manhwa City and handle Dian Huang so skillfully? Not only did he not suffer a loss, but he also came back victorious, forcing Dian Huang to suffer disgrace in front of everyone. The Duke felt a mix of pride, joy, and anger. Today, though he won, it was too dangerous, the Duke said. He'll become more reckless in the future. I must take this opportunity to teach him a lesson and humble his arrogance. Madam, you must assist me in this, and don't let him get too cocky. The Duchess chuckled and replied, "Don't worry, my husband. I'll help you teach him." Later, when Tham Lang returned, he hurriedly entered the Duke's mansion, not wanting to meet his father-in-law. Though he had won, going to the gambling hall was a risky move, and his father-in-law was too conservative to tolerate such behavior. As Lang was about to enter his room, the Duke stood right behind the door. Tham Lang froze. "My dear father-in-law, you're waiting behind the door for me?" he thought. "This feels like a loss of dignity for the Duke." The Duke stood straight and said, "Father-in-law, I was wrong." The Duke bellowed, "Tham Lang, you have a lot of nerves. You said you had a way to beat Dian Huang, but it turns out you went to gamble? Our Duke's house has a 300-year history, and we've never had a descendant involved in such a thing." Before the Duke could finish, Tham Lang knelt down and said, "Father-in-law, I won't do it again." The Duke pointed at him and said, "Do you know what you've done today?" He pointed at Tham Lang with trembling hands. Tham Lang sincerely said, "Father-in-law, I won't gamble again. I was wrong. Please don't be angry." The Duke was fuming but could do nothing. His anger boiled as he thought about the situation. But just then, the Duchess intervened, comforting the Duke. Calm down, calm down. Langer is young. He just needs to learn from his mistakes. His intentions were good, but he just went about it the wrong way." The Duke was speechless, feeling like his efforts were thwarted by his wife. The Duchess continued, "Langer, don't go to places like gambling halls in the future. If you do, I'll punish you. Do you understand?" "Of course, madam," Tham Lang replied sweetly. And just like that, the Duke's plans were thwarted, and his attempts to discipline Tham Lang were thwarted by his wife.
Furen, a kind mother spoils her child. A kind mother spoils her child. However, usually you are very harsh to your biological son, saying hit and hitting. Why then, in front of the son-in-law, do you lose your position? Could it be because he's handsome? Because he speaks sweetly? Seeing Tham Lang's gaze toward his mother-in-law like that of a meek little lamb, the Duke's face turned red with anger. "This scoundrel! Is there no way for me to deal with you?" The Duke said, "Tham Lang, from today onwards, you are grounded again." Huh? Tham Lang was surprised. Didn't he just finish being grounded? The Duke continued, You may stay within the mansion and move around, but you are not allowed to leave the Duke's house. Understand? Tham Lang hesitated and asked, "Father-in-law, how long will this grounding last?" The Duke replied, "It will last until I believe that I can trust you." This condition was too vague. Tham Lang said, "How about you set a clear condition for me? Once I fulfill it, the grounding will be lifted. For example, no conditions, no letters, no agreements, no nothing at all." The Duke quickly interrupted him, his voice rising, directly cutting off Tham Lang's thoughts. As soon as he heard the word condition, the Duke's mind was suddenly filled with unpleasant memories. He then said, "You think you can use some tricks, but from today you must stay in the mansion and cultivate yourself. When I feel that you're no longer a troublemaker, I'll let you out." The Duke had changed. He was once straightforward. Now he was becoming scheming. The Duke certainly remembered his previous lesson. Yesterday, he had just imposed the grounding, intending to make Tham Lang stay home obediently for a month or two. But unexpectedly, after just one night, Tham Lang had managed to return to freedom because the Duke could not go back on his word. He hadn't expected that Tham Lang would cause such a big commotion as soon as he left the house today. Even though he had won, and the battle had truly been beautiful, it was still so dangerous. The Duke had always been conservative, unwilling to see military matters take such a risky turn. And moreover, he really worried that Điền Hoành might not have done enough, and if he were to take action, he could directly harm Tham Lang. But this concern he would never say out loud. If Tham Lang, this little brat, knew that the Duke cared about him, wouldn't he aim higher? Everyone, listen up. From today onward, my son-in-law is not allowed to leave the Duke's mansion even one step. If anyone sees him trying to leave, stop him. Understand? The Duke shouted. This will last until I officially lift the grounding order. Yes, the people shouted in unison. They then looked at Tham Lang with strange eyes. Schadenfreude. They were absolutely enjoying this misfortune. The Duke's heir, Mộc Thông, was studying military strategy. This morning, his mother had scolded him, and Mộc Thông thought it was probably because he had been reading the classic of poetry, as it contained many love poems. So, he decided to read military texts instead. That couldn't go wrong, he thought. My parents must hope that I will inherit the family's military traditions, so reading military texts will surely please them. As expected, not long after, his parents arrived. He said, "Father, Mother, I was just reading military texts. I must inherit our family's legacy and learn military strategies well," trying to please them. "Stop reading, lie down," the Duchess ordered. A moment later, Mộc Thông was expertly pinned to a chair by his parents. The father used a whip and the mother used a ruler. Whap, whap, whap. Ah, why? Is reading military strategy wrong too? Do I have to be punished for it again? He really hadn't done anything wrong. He had been studying quietly, even though he didn't understand a word. Why did he have to be punished again after this morning?
44.2 Why are you hitting me? He cried. The Duke and Duchess didn't respond. After the punishment, they left directly. Mộc Thông was left speechless. In fact, his parents had come to punish him on a whim, prompted by what had happened with Tham Lang. Tham Lang's performance had been so brilliant that it made Mộc Thông seem even more clumsy. The Duke had intended to discipline Tham Lang properly, but before he could start, everything had been blocked. Moreover, the Duchess had been unfairly helping Tham Lang, so the Duke had no choice but to vent his frustration on his son. Tham Lang returned to the backyard. Mộc Thông, dressed in armor, was standing inside. "My husband is back. Let's eat," Mộc Thông said. Tham Lang was surprised and asked, "Mộc Thông, why are you still wearing armor at home?" Mộc Thông said, "Just in case something happens to you in the city, I can lead the troops to rescue you." Tham Lang was touched. Even though Mộc Thong's tone was calm, he felt a warmth in his heart. "Come, let me help you take off your armor. Let's have a meal," Tham Lang gently said. Mộc Thông was surprised, but opened her arms for Tham Lang to help her out of the armor. "Thank you, my wife, for always waiting for me at home, worrying about me." Mộc Thông replied, "Of course. Today you had a great victory. I was so surprised and happy. It's a shared honor." As soon as Mộc Thông removed her armor, Tham Lang couldn't help but take a deep breath. She was wearing a tight leather outfit underneath, which made her figure incredibly attractive. Her waist was slender like a snake, and her curves were so perfect they could rival any dancer. Her long, powerful legs seemed like they could easily throw away half a life. Mộc Thông said, "But, husband, when you're working in the future, make sure to think carefully. If something happens, your father, mother, and I will worry about you." "I understand," Tham Lang said, his heart full of warmth, as he gently embraced her waist. Mộc Thông was surprised. Her perfect figure stiffened slightly, but she didn't resist. Tham Lang's touch was filled with warmth and affection. However, 3 seconds later, his hand slid down to an inappropriate place. "Husband, where are you putting your hand?" Mộc Thông asked. Tham Lang quickly withdrew his hand and said, "Seriously, wife, I swear it's not my fault. Your skin is just too smooth and my hand slipped. It was completely unintentional." "No, next time," Mộc Thông said. Tham Lang justified himself, saying, "Wife, I swear, if there's a next time, you can step on my hand." 3 seconds later, Tham Lang's hand slid down again. Mộc Thông immediately grabbed his hand, holding it firmly on her bottom, and seriously said, "Husband, a man must keep his word. This hand of yours needs to be punished." Tham Lang said, "Wife, I was just joking. No man would actually say something like that. I'd rather trust a 100-year-old man's hidden fortune than believe a man who says something like that." Mộc Thông looked at her handsome face, unable to believe that this gorgeous face could hide such a thick skin. "Eat," Mộc Thông said, pulling her hand away and walking to the dining table. She thought to herself if Tham Lang wasn't so handsome, she would have slapped him. After dinner, Mộc Thông quickly washed her face and cleaned her teeth, then drank some rose water. The fragrance filled her mouth, though she couldn't taste it. Afterwards, she put her armor back on. "Wife, where are you going this evening?" Tham Lang asked. Mộc Thông said, "I'll lead the cavalry to patrol the city at night, along the coastal roads." Tham Lang felt distressed. Mộc Thông said, "Husband, stay at home, don't cause any trouble." Inside the heir's room, Kim Mộc Thông was attending remedial classes. He had been punished by his mother this morning, so now he thought it was probably because he was reading the classic of poetry. The poems were filled with love verses between men and women, so he decided to study military strategy instead. This surely couldn't go wrong. My parents surely want me to inherit the family military traditions, so reading military texts will definitely make them happy. Sure enough, his parents soon arrived. Father, Mother, I'm studying military strategy. I must learn it well to inherit the family legacy. Stop reading and lie down, the Duchess said. A moment later, he was pinned to a chair by his parents. The father used a whip and the mother used a ruler. Whap, whap, whap. Why? Is reading military strategy wrong too? He screamed.
After Moklan left, Tham Lang was left alone in the study, feeling dumbfounded. He couldn't stay confined any longer, and he needed to figure out a way to make his father-in-law lift the restriction and restore his freedom. There was a major task he needed to accomplish soon, but facing his father-in-law, he couldn't force the issue. He had to apply a strategy of indirect tactics. Just then, Tiobong rushed in, shouting, "Koza, not good! The heir is coming with people to beat you." Tham Lang was surprised. "Kim Mok Thong, that fatty heir? He's coming to beat me?" Tiobong quickly said, "Koza, you should hide. I'll report to Madam immediately." Tham Lang shook his head, saying, "No, don't tell Madam." Tiobong replied, "Koza, the heir is a reckless brat. If he beats you, it's bad news. Even if the Duke punishes him later, it won't make a difference." Tham Lang sighed. "All right, I understand. Go ahead and leave now." "Don't be reckless, please," Tiobong urged him as she stomped her foot, causing a noticeable jolt that almost knocked Tham Lang off balance. Seeing his reaction, Tiobong instinctively covered her chest and quickly stopped herself from stomping again. So ungrateful, not listening to me," she muttered, giving Tham Lang a glare before quickly running off to tell Madam. She knew that Kim Mok Thong, though reckless, shouldn't be left unchecked. Once she left, Tham Lang smiled lightly. If he couldn't handle a fatty brat like that, how could he survive at the Duke's residence? Though he hadn't interacted much with Kim Mok Thong, he understood enough. The heir was a clumsy, simple-minded person who liked to show off. Handling people like him was quite simple. Tham Lang grabbed a brush and began writing names on the empty wall space. The names flowed from his hand with an air of menace. Soon, loud noises could be heard outside. "Tham Lang, get out here! If I don't beat you today, my name isn't Kim. You cowardly son-in-law, you dare to bully the Duke's maid? Tiobong is like a sister to me, and you dare to offend her? You're asking for death!" Kim Mok Thong shouted, furious. Tham Lang heard the angry voice of the heir, followed by the sound of him charging in, wielding a club. Behind him, several subordinates stood guard outside. Kim Mok Thong, though too afraid to strike directly at the son-in-law, he still had his men to back him up. When Kim Mok Thong stormed in, he saw Tham Lang perched on a chair, writing names on the wall. "What are you doing, Tham Lang? Get down now!" Tham Lang casually stayed on the chair, unfazed. He couldn't let Kim Mok Thong strike him with that club. That would result in a severe beating. "I'm just writing names," Tham Lang replied nonchalantly, pointing to the names he'd written on the wall. Dean 12, Dean 13, Điền Hoành, Lan Mok, Tu Thien Ten, Trong Tan, Zhu Quang Duan. Curious, Kim Mok Thong asked, "What are these names for?" Tham Lang said, "These are my enemies. I'm writing them on the wall so I don't forget. I need to remember them at all times so I can avenge them." He then took out red ink and added a large cross on the names of Dean 13 and Dean 14, as if marking them in blood. "Why are you crossing out their names?" Kim Mok Thong asked. "I've already taken care of them. The vengeance has been carried out." Kim Mok Thong was puzzled. "How deep a grudge do you have with them to do something like this?" Tham Lang said, "Dean 13 threatened me before, so I had Dean Hoan break his legs. His thighs were shattered." "What about Dean 14? Kim Mok Thong asked, now deeply intrigued. Tham Lang's voice grew colder. He was even worse. "He not only threatened me,
but also used my finger to humiliate me. The one thing I hate the most is people pointing at me with their fingers. So I had him break both his arms and legs. I smashed him completely.
45.2. Kim Mộc Thông froze in shock. This was the level of vengeance Tham Lang had. His enemies' names on the wall, crossed out, each with deep hatred attached, were reminders of blood and conflict. Kim Mộc Thong's heart raced as he looked at the scene, now realizing the extent of Tham Lang's grudge. He asked, "Why haven't you filled the whole wall with these names?" Tham Lang replied coldly, "Life is long. Who knows how many enemies will come? I've left room for more names." Kim Mộc Thông felt a chill run down his spine. If Tham Lang had such deep grudges, what would happen if he were to become Tham Lang's next target? Tham Lang turned to him and asked, "Do you need something, heir?" Kim Mộc Thông quickly dropped his club, laughing awkwardly. "No, nothing at all. I was just walking around after eating too much." Tham Lang teased, "I thought I heard someone calling to beat me." Kim Mộc Thông nervously replied, "No one. Who would dare to touch the Duke's son-in-law? I'll be leaving now." He quickly turned and fled. Tham Lang couldn't help but laugh. This kid, such a coward. As soon as Kim Mộc Thông rushed down, he bumped into someone even more terrifying. His mother, the Duchess. "Ah, you miserable son! You actually tried to beat Tham Lang?" the Duchess scolded, grabbing him by the ear and dragging him out. "If I don't beat some sense into you today, you're not my son." Kim Mộc Thông yelled, "Mother, I didn't do anything. I didn't." "You didn't do anything? So you had the thought of doing it. It looks like you're still too naive. You tried to hit him after all the trouble he caused for us? Well, today I'll make sure you learn your lesson." She began hitting him with her hand, the force of each strike making Kim Mộc Thông feel as if he might pass out. Tham Lang, watching from a distance, felt a little sympathy. This poor kid was getting a lesson from his mother. After a while, Kim Mộc Thông, in pain and exhausted, finally heard a voice. "Please, stop, mother." Tham Lang, seeing the scene unfold, thought to himself, "This kid is lucky to be alive." As he heard the Duchess's voice behind him, it softened immediately. "Langer, don't worry. I'll take care of this for you." Tham Lang smiled and said, "The heir just wanted to chat. We didn't argue or fight. Please, let him off this time." The Duchess smiled sweetly. "Really? Really?" Smack! The Duchess suddenly slapped Kim Mộc Thông across the head, nearly knocking him out. Tham Lang couldn't help but laugh. This kid was in for a lot of trouble. Kim Mộc Thông, teary-eyed, thought, "I only wanted to get my anger out on Tham Lang for you, Tiao Bang, but now I'm stuck here. This is so unfair."
Overall, Kim Mộc Thông was released by the Duchess, but he was still feeling somewhat intimidated by her. She said, "For Langer's sake, I will spare you today. If you ever show any disrespect to your brother-in-law, I will skin you alive." As the Duchess left, she truly felt sentimental. If only her son could be as clever as Tham Lang, everything would be so much easier. Brother-in-law, I can't thank you enough. Today, you spared my life, and I will forever remember it. If you ever need anything in the future, just ask. I am a man of loyalty." Kim Mộc Thông said proudly, patting his chubby chest. "From now on, just call on me, and I'll support you." Tham Lang replied, "Then tell me, who encouraged you to come and beat me?" Kim Mộc Thông flinched and shook his head. No, I'll never betray my loyalty. Even if you kill me, I won't say a word. Loyalty is the most important thing for a man." Tham Lang looked at this unlucky kid and finally understood why his father and mother-in-law were always trying to tame this naive son. If he were stuck with such a foolish son, he'd probably resort to beating him 2 or 3 times a day to release his frustration. But Tham Lang didn't ask any further. While the heir's loyalty was foolish, it was still a good moral trait. Right now, he was teaching the young man the meaning of loyalty. One day, he might even apply that loyalty to himself. When that day came, he'd be ready for whatever would come his way. Tham Lang raised his thumb and said, "The heir is truly a man of great loyalty. I, Tham Lang, am impressed." Kim Mok Thong proudly patted his chubby chest and said, "You'll see. When you get to know me better, you'll understand. I am a true, loyal friend." After this, the chubby heir stayed in Tham Lang's study for a while, yawning and eventually going back to sleep. Tham Lang locked the door to his room. He then took a bag of black barley, some of which was moldy, and began crushing it lightly, making sure to scatter the fungus-covered bits. If someone understood his intentions, they'd likely be terrified, not knowing who Tham Lang was planning to harm next. He had carefully prepared this. At the critical moment, it could shift the tide. The next morning, Tham Lang got up and noticed that Mok Lan hadn't returned. His wife must be extremely busy. It was still Tiao Bang, who helped Tham Lang wash his face. "Bang Bang, I have a question for you." "Tia," Bang replied. "Go siya, ask away." Tham Lang asked, "Do you know why the white tiger is considered so rare and precious?" Tia Bang blinked her eyes, thinking for a moment, then said, "Because most tigers are yellow?" Tham Lang shook his head. "No, it's because time is as precious as gold. Each moment is fleeting. Life's time is a precious resource." Tia Bang was confused. What does the white tiger have to do with time? Tham Lang innerly sighed. Ah, young girls without education are truly terrifying. They don't even understand when they're being joked with. Tia Bang said, "I'll ask Miss Mok Lan about it tonight. I don't understand the meaning." Tham Lang felt a slight pang of discomfort. He wondered if Mok Lan, being so simple-minded, would understand it. At least he didn't think he'd get in trouble. Then he remembered something. Yesterday, when Kim Mok Thong came to beat him, he accused Tham Lang of bullying Tiao Bang. Perhaps that was the real reason he was here to confront him. Thus, Tham Lang casually asked, "Tiao Bang, did you cry yesterday?" Tiao Bang was surprised and said, "No, why would I cry?" After breakfast, Kim Trung, the Duke's most trusted aide, appeared in front of Tham Lang. This man was always expressionless, but his gaze was surprisingly softer, unlike before, when he looked at Tham Lang as if he owed him 1,000 gold coins. "The Duke has ordered you to accompany the young master and continue your studies. Don't neglect your learning," Kim Trung said, before leaving. "Study? Help with that? I've already studied 5 different ways of wealth. Do I still need to study?" However, since his father-in-law was angry, it was better not to take any chances. He decided to go along and pretend to be studious, perhaps checking out Kim Mok Thong's situation along the way, to find out who was behind the animosity towards him.
Overall, the Duke's private school had over 100 students. 10 of them, including Kim Mok Thong, were in the same class as Tham Lang. They were all around the same age, between 15 and 20 years old. As Tham Lang entered, the entire class immediately became lively. Over a dozen pairs of eyes stared at him, not even trying to hide their animosity and jealousy. The reason was simple. Tham Lang had married Kim Mok Lan, the beloved dream girl of all the young men from ages 8 to 28. After exchanging glances, these young men closed in on him. Young men were often straightforward and brash, so the first thing they did was to start an argument. "What's going on?"
Kim Mok Thong walked over to Tham Lang, put his arm around him, and said, "This is my brother-in-law. From now on, show him some respect, or I'll be coming for you." He pounded his chubby chest, showing off some minor authority. Despite his weight, Kim Mok Thong seemed to have some sway in the classroom. After all, he was the heir to the Duke's house, and the group of young men quickly scattered, but they still threw Tham Lang looks full of defiance. After all, this wasn't just any normal school day. "Tham Lang, I believe in loyalty," the heir added, slapping his chest again. "Sit next to me and I promise no one will dare to touch you." After a while, the teacher arrived, an elderly man with half-white hair and a very thin frame, no more than 80 pounds. He was known as Mr. Lam. He wasn't just the teacher to Kim Mok Thong, he was also one of the Duke's most trusted aides and responsible for managing the family's wealth and trade dealings. He was about to start a lecture on the I Ching, a classic Chinese text that delves into the nature of change, the cosmos, and the human condition. As they studied, Tham Lang silently absorbed the lessons, though the others seemed bored. About half an hour later, Mr. Lam suddenly noticed Tham Lang's presence. "Ah, we have a new student today," he asked, surprised. Tham Lang said nothing, but the teacher continued. "Such a beautiful man. Too bad you're a man." Tham Lang was taken aback, unsure how to respond to this comment. Mr. Lam then asked, "Aren't you the one who studied in the Han Shui town school for 10 years without completing your elementary education? You ended up here in the Duke's residence?" He snorted. "We teachers have been discussing it. You're probably a disgrace to the scholars of Xuanwu City." Tham Lang frowned. Was this teacher trying to provoke him? The teacher continued. "Have you studied the I Ching before?" Tham Lang responded, "I've understood some parts of it." Mr. Lam, intrigued, asked, "The heavens move and the gentleman continues to strive upward. What does that mean?" Tham Lang answered, "The way of heaven moves endlessly and no one can stop it. The gentleman must follow this path, constantly improving and striving." Mr. Lam asked again, "Opposing the dragon leads to regret. The enterprise cannot last. What does that mean?" Tham Lang responded, "When a dragon flies too high, it will eventually regret it. One cannot strive too hard for perfection. There should always be a bit of room for regret." His interpretation was precise, not missing a single detail. Mr. Lam was taken aback. This was the so-called fool, the uneducated one who'd been spreading rumors about him. He was astounded. He then asked, "If you had to pick one phrase from the I Ching to explain the current state of the country, what would you choose?" This was a difficult question, but Tham Lang quickly thought of an answer. After a brief pause, he said, "There is no direction, and everything is in chaos." Mr. Lam was taken aback again, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Good, good," he said, suddenly slamming the table. This is truly a brilliant young man. Such wisdom, it's hard to believe it came from such a young person. Your answer to the question is exactly what this country is going through right now," Mr. Lam continued, his praise resonating through the room. "You should not be here with these students." The other students looked on in shock, whispering to each other, completely lost. Tham Lang had successfully used the I Ching to pierce through the core of the current political situation in the country. His answer was insightful and brilliant. Mr. Lam, completely impressed, couldn't help but continue his praise. "Well done, young man. You're smarter than I thought.